I lost my memory after falling into the sea to save a CEO. She repaid me by marrying me. But even after we were married, her heart always belonged to her long-lost first love. Now that she had a lead on her first love, she impatiently tossed $5 million at me. "They found him," she said. "Let's get a divorce." Just as I was about to drop to my knees and beg her to stay, my memory came flooding back. I was the sole heir to one of the most powerful families in the country, the Hawthorns, and I had a fiancé, a childhood arrangement with an equally powerful dynasty. In that moment, Chloe Anderson handed me the divorce papers. "Sign it," she said. "This money is enough to last you a lifetime." Without another word, she turned and rushed out the door, never looking back. I signed the papers without hesitation, then picked up my phone and dialed a number. "Hello? Do you know who this is?" The moment the words left my mouth, the woman on the other end shot back. "Are you crazy? How the hell would I know who you are?" I raised an eyebrow. "You don't recognize my voice? Ellie, have I been gone so long you've forgotten? Or have you just gotten cocky?" The woman on the other end, Ellie Vance, went silent for 2 seconds, then shrieked, "Ethan, you're alive!" Her voice then turned sour. "You disappear for 2 years without a word, and I was supposed to think what? I figured you'd run off with some tramp." I ignored the jab and gave my order. "I just sent my location to your phone. Come get me." The next morning, as I stepped out of the villa, a dazzling, diamond-encrusted Ferrari pulled up. A stunningly beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes emerged from the driver's seat and moved to give me a hug. I heartlessly pushed her aside and went straight for the passenger door. Ellie stomped her foot, her voice laced with indignation. "You heartless bastard. I flew all night from Europe to get here, and this is the welcome I get." I shot her a look and said flatly, "Let's go." As she got in, I took one last look at the house I had called home for 2 years. I didn't belong here, just as Chloe had never truly belonged to me. I'd been her convenient, spineless husband for 2 years. Now that my memory was back, it was time to find out who was responsible for trying to kill me. 2 days later, Chloe returned to the villa. She went straight upstairs and locked herself in her bedroom. The information had been wrong. The man wasn't her first love. The trip had been a complete waste. Just then, the housekeeper knocked and entered, handing her the signed divorce agreement. "Ma'am, Mr. Hawthorne has signed and left. He didn't take anything with him, not even the credit card you gave him." Chloe's brow furrowed. The man was useless and penniless. This was probably just a ploy to make her feel sorry for him. "I need to finalize the divorce as soon as possible," Chloe thought, "before he causes more trouble." The housekeeper had barely left when her assistant, Tina Young, walked in. "Ms. Anderson, Mr. Hawthorne is back." An annoyed expression crossed Chloe's face. She knew he wouldn't give up so easily. Tina shook her head. "Not here." The tabloids caught him. He was photographed checking into a hotel with Ellie Vance, the European heiress. They were there all night. Chloe's expression soured. He knew Ellie Vance? No wonder he didn't need her money. He'd already lined up his next meal ticket. Already in a foul mood, this news made her even more irritable. She called her best friend, Sarah Collins, and asked her to go out for drinks. Meanwhile, at the Apex Club in downtown NYC, I surveyed the lineup of beautiful women before me, a satisfied smirk playing on my lips. Ellie was in a private suite upstairs for a meeting and, worried I'd get bored, had called some friends to keep me company. I swirled the brandy in my glass. "How old are you, sweetheart?" The girls giggled. "I'm 23, one said. "I'm 21, chirped another. I looked over the friends Ellie had gathered, thoroughly pleased. Each one was more stunning than the last, easily rivaling Chloe's beauty. If she could divorce me for her first love, why couldn't I have a little fun? I smiled at the beauty beside me. "Have a drink with me. If you keep me happy tonight, I'll buy you a sports car." Her eyes lit up. She immediately poured my drink and scooted closer. "To you," she purred. Seeing my generosity, all the girls swarmed me, eagerly pouring drinks and using every trick in the book to entertain me. At that same moment, in a suite upstairs, Chloe was drinking with Sarah. Sarah suddenly spoke up, her tone gentle. "Chloe, you've been searching for so many years. Maybe it's time to let go." Chloe had been searching for the man for 5 years, even posting a $30 million reward online, but there was still no sign of him. Sarah knew what Chloe was capable of. If she hadn't found him after all this time, the man was likely dead. But that was a truth Sarah never dared to speak aloud. Chloe said nothing, simply downing the rest of her drink in one go. Knowing her friend's temper, Sarah dropped it and changed the subject. "Is Ethan really okay with the divorce?" Everyone knew Ethan had fallen for Chloe at first sight 2 years ago, relentlessly pursuing her before they were even married. Chloe had only married him to get her family off her back. Afterwards, Ethan had done everything imaginable to win her affection, practically offering her his own heart on a silver platter. How could a man that besotted with Chloe agree to a divorce so easily? Something wasn't right. As Chloe recalled the news about Ethan and Ellie at the hotel, her expression turned to ice. Just then, Sarah pointed down to the main floor. "Doesn't that guy down there look a lot like Ethan?" She rubbed her eyes. "No, wait, Ethan could never look that hot." Chloe narrowed her eyes and followed her friend's gaze. Down in the VIP section, a group of gorgeous young women surrounded a man lounging on a sofa. His long legs were casually propped on the coffee table, and he idly swirled the liquor in his glass, radiating an aura of lazy, aristocratic confidence. As one of the girls eagerly refilled his glass, he tilted his chin up and gave her a devastatingly charming smile. Chloe stared at the man below, her heart lurching. It was Ethan. Sarah double-checked, her eyes wide with disbelief. "No way, it really is him. And look at him, surrounded by all those women. The man's a magnet." Chloe watched me, her beautiful eyes turning frosty. It was bad enough he was caught with Ellie Vance, but now he was brazenly carousing in public. "Fine, Ethan," she thought. "You've really outdone yourself." I was in the middle of a lively chat with the beauties when I sensed a sharp, piercing gaze fixed on me. I turned my head and saw a familiar figure striding my way. A flicker of something passed through my eyes, and I deliberately let a mocking smile spread across my face. Chloe pushed through the crowd and stood before me. "The ink on the divorce papers is barely dry, and you're already out messing around? Ethan, are you that desperate?" I leaned back into the sofa and chuckled. "Life is short. You have to seize the day." Chloe stared down at me, her expression frigid. Behind her, Sarah whispered, "Chloe, do you think getting dumped by you broke his brain?" I just smiled. "You're too kind, Miss Collins." I stretched my arms out, draping them over the shoulders of the women on either side of me. "Why would I give up an entire forest for a single tree?" Sarah's jaw dropped. He just called Chloe a single tree? This was not the Ethan she knew. Chloe stared at me, a woman on each arm, her face a mask of fury. The man before her was a complete stranger. I met her gaze, a flicker of defiance in my eyes. "What's the matter, Ms. Anderson? You think I'm wrong?" I had to admit, the woman was genuinely stunning, with an untouchable, almost ascetic air about her. And right now, as she looked at me, her beautiful eyes held a hint of unspoken danger. Just then, a large, drunk man staggered over to my booth. "Two pretty little things fighting over one guy. Why don't you come to Daddy? I'll take care of you." Chloe shot him a disgusted look and took a few steps back. The portly man then lumbered toward me, shoving one of the girls aside. "What's so great about a twig like him? I could send him flying with one slap." A greasy hand reached for my collar. A murderous glint flashed in my eyes. Just as his hand was about to touch me, I moved. A sharp crack echoed as my palm connected with his face. The man screamed and crumpled to the floor. "You little bastard, you dare." I followed up with a kick to his stomach that sent him flying several feet. Seeing their boss go down, his bodyguards swarmed me. A thrill, a touch of bloodlust, coursed through me as I met their charge, taking them down one by one with a single punch. The entire confrontation lasted less than 10 seconds. All four of them were on the ground. I casually dusted off my clothes, sat back down on the sofa, and took a leisurely sip of my drink. Sarah pointed at me, her face a mask of utter disbelief. "Ethan, you can fight like that?" But he always seemed so mild-mannered. How did he suddenly turn into a martial arts master? Was his gentle act all fake? Chloe stared at me, the frost in her eyes slowly melting away, replaced by a flicker of amusement that curved her lips into a smile. Her ex-husband, it seemed, was far more interesting than she'd ever imagined. For 2 years, he had been docile and obedient. The moment they separated, he was a different person. And those moves he'd just used, why did they seem so familiar? Chloe narrowed her eyes, a seed of suspicion taking root. Noticing the girls were now keeping their distance, I beckoned with a finger, my smile seductive. "Why are you all standing so far away?"
Comme pour me adriner.
As a few of them started to move, a glacial stare shot across the room, freezing them in place. It was Chloe's icy glare. The girls' legs turned to jelly, and they quickly scattered. Chloe Anderson of the Anderson family, the queen of New York's elite. Offending her was a death wish. I shot her a cool glance. "Chloe, you know it's bad luck to be a buzzkill." She scowled at me. "Ethan, we aren't officially divorced. There's a mandatory 1-month cooling-off period. We can't finalize anything until then." I sneered. "Don't tell me you're having second thoughts, Chloe." She scoffed. "You wish. I poured myself another drink. Good. Chloe stared at the handsome, flamboyant man before her, completely baffled. Just a few days ago, he had been clinging to her, crying, begging her not to leave him. Now he was a total stranger. What's your relationship with Ellie Vance? Chloe demanded. I arched an eyebrow. I don't have to explain my personal life to my soon-to-be ex-wife. Ex-wife. Ellie's shocked and wounded voice cut through the air. She stood a short distance away, pointing at Chloe. Ethan, you married some tramp behind my back. Instantly, the temperature around Chloe seemed to drop 20 degrees. How dare she call Chloe a tramp? I shot Ellie a look laced with a silent threat, and she immediately backed down, making a playful face. Chloe, a good ex-wife should act like she's dead and buried. Got it. Hearing this, Chloe had the overwhelming urge to punch me. I ignored her, waving Ellie over. Come on, let's find another party. Ellie immediately fell into step behind me. Chloe watched my retreating back, her eyes simmering with a furious, roiling anger. A thought suddenly struck her. How did he know Ellie Vance? And they seemed so close. 2 years ago, he was an amnesiac with no memory of his past. He'd lived in her villa ever since, never working, never going out. It was impossible for him to have met Ellie. Chloe's eyes narrowed. Unless they already knew each other. Sarah, I want you to do a deep dive on Ellie Vance. I want to know everything about her connection to Ethan. Chloe paused, then added, and run a background check on Ethan, too. Sarah agreed, then teased, you know, Chloe, for someone who did the dumping, you're sure acting like you're the one who got dumped. After leaving the club, I went straight back to my hotel. The whole, let's find another party line was just for Chloe's benefit, a little something to get under her skin. The entire drive back, Ellie chattered nonstop, grilling me about my relationship with Chloe. I couldn't take it anymore and gave her the short version. She saved my life 2 years ago, so I married her. Now she thinks she's found her first love, so we're getting a divorce. She saved your life? Ellie stared at me, incredulous. Ethan Hawthorne was always the one doing the saving, not the other way around. My expression turned grim. Someone hired mercenaries from Black Shark to kill me. Ellie's face paled. Black Shark was a notoriously ruthless mercenary group. They were the kind of killers who would do anything for the right price, valuing money far more than life. I thought back to the ambush in the jungle 2 years ago, a dark glint in my eyes. Who hired Black Shark to put a price on my head? Have you found out who was behind it? Ellie asked. I shook my head. I only got my memory back 2 days ago. I haven't had time to look into it. Ellie's expression turned serious. Give me 2 days. I'll find out. I nodded. Good. Ellie suddenly remembered something. Oh right, there's a bounty for you online. The reward is up to $30 million. I raised an eyebrow. 30 million? Who's feeling so generous? Is it a kill order? They want you alive. A price that high to capture me. It's probably someone who needs my help. I didn't think much of it. There were plenty of posts about me online, but almost no one ever dared to take the jobs. Back at the hotel, I showered and was about to get some rest when I remembered something important.
Maille Jade pendant.
It was still with Chloe. When Chloe and I got married, I'd given it to her as a wedding gift. I didn't know its significance then, but now that my memory was back, I was kicking myself. How could I have given away something so critical? Without it, my work would be severely compromised. I had to get it back. The next day, Sarah went to Anderson Corporation early in the morning to see Chloe. This is everything I could find on Ethan, she said, handing over a file. Chloe opened the file. It contained only a few sparse lines of text. This is it. Sarah shrugged helplessly. His records must be heavily encrypted. Besides the absolute basics, he's a ghost. There's nothing else to find. Ethan's information was encrypted? Chloe frowned. That was something she hadn't expected at all. Normal people didn't have encrypted files. She stared at the document in her hand, a cold glint in her eyes. Just then, Tina knocked on the door. Ma'am, Mr. Hawthorne is here. Before Tina could finish, I strode into the office, my presence filling the room. Chloe looked up at me, and for a split second, a flicker of stunned admiration crossed her face. Sarah looked at me, remembering my performance at the club the night before, and instinctively took a step back. I paid her no mind, walking directly to Chloe's desk. Give me back my jade pendant. Chloe stared at the man before her, a complete stranger from the man she'd known, and found herself unconsciously swallowing. What jade pendant? I let out a cold laugh. I knew it. She'd forgotten. I remembered the day I gave it to her. She hadn't even glanced at it before tossing it carelessly onto a table. When we got married, I said, my voice cold as steel, I gave you a jade pendant. Chloe thought for a moment, and a vague memory surfaced. When she'd pulled me from the water 2 years ago, the pendant had been around my neck, my name engraved on it. She leaned back in her chair, sizing me up. You came all this way just for that pendant? I crossed my arms. What else would I be here for? Chloe, you didn't actually think I came to beg you to take me back, did you? She stared at me, her face a frozen mask. Good. I laughed bitterly to myself. Don't worry, I thought. I can't wait to be a complete stranger to you. Get back together? Not in this lifetime. I had no time to waste arguing with her. I held out my hand. My pendant. Now. Chloe gave me a dismissive look. I threw it out. I froze. Threw it out? She actually threw away my pendant. Chloe took a sip of her coffee, her face impassive. Just because you gave it to me doesn't mean I had to keep it. I slammed my hand on the desk, my face livid with rage. Chloe, where did you throw it? She remained perfectly calm. I forget. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to strangle her. She keenly noticed the flash of murderous intent in my eyes and, to my surprise, seemed to find it amusing. In 2 years of marriage, she had never seen me this angry. We locked eyes in a tense standoff for a moment before I suddenly broke into a laugh. Chloe, I'm giving you 10 days. If you don't find my pendant, I'm withdrawing the divorce application. During the 1-month cooling-off period, either party could cancel the proceedings at any time. Chloe froze, her expression instantly turning cold. She knew it. She knew he wouldn't let her go that easily. The pendant was just an excuse, a pre-planned tactic. My smile widened. As long as I refuse to divorce you, your precious first love will always be just the other man. Chloe's eyes blazed as she stood and advanced on me. Ethan, you listen to me. I am getting this divorce, one way or another. I gave a cold laugh. Then you'd better find my pendant. If you can't, I'll make Anderson Corporation pay for it. This is your only chance, Chloe. I shot her one last warning glance before turning and walking out. The moment I stepped out of the office, I saw a man with bleached blonde hair heading my way. It was Mark Sterling, heir to the Sterling fortune and one of Chloe's many admirers. He'd been a thorn in my side ever since Chloe and I got married. Mark froze when he saw me coming out of Chloe's office, then pointed a finger at me, his face contorted with anger. What are you doing here? None of your damn business, I snapped. Before, to try and win Chloe's affection, I'd suppressed my true nature, playing the part of the meek, obedient husband. I always just took it whenever Mark started trouble, or I'd simply avoid him. Not anymore. Mark was stunned that the weakling he was used to bullying would dare talk back to him. His face twisted in a sneer. Ethan, Chloe's divorcing you. Why are you still hanging around like a pathetic stray? I smiled. Mr. Sterling, Chloe and I haven't finalized the papers. Technically, we're still legally married. Mark got in my face, pointing a finger at my nose. So what? You know you're not the one she loves. I waved a dismissive hand. Whether she loves me or not is irrelevant. As long as I don't sign those papers, I'm her husband. Mark exploded. I've seen guys like you before. You're just a gold digger, dragging this out for a bigger payout. He pulled a check from his wallet and threw it in my face. Here's $1 million. Take it and get the hell out of her life. I narrowed my eyes at his arrogant display, then lazily picked up the check. $1 million? For that, you get 1 hour. Mark glared at me. What do you mean 1 hour? I want you to leave Chloe for good. Are you insane? You think $1 million isn't enough? I clicked my tongue. Mr. Sterling, you're really embarrassing yourself, offering a paltry million like it's real money. With a flick of my wrist, the check flew from my hand. Its stiff edge sliced across Mark's cheek like a razor, drawing a line of blood. He clutched his face, his hand coming away red. My face. Ethan, you bastard. You cut my face. I'll kill you. I sneered. You? 2 years ago, a team of highly trained professionals in the jungle couldn't kill me. What makes you think you can? Enraged, Mark swung at my face with all his might. Before his fist could connect, I caught his wrist. A sickening crack echoed in the hallway, followed by a scream that sounded like a dying animal. Mark crumpled to his knees, his right arm bent at an unnatural angle. Ack! My arm! I looked down at the pathetic man on the floor and smiled. If you don't learn your lesson, next time it won't be just your arm. Just then, Chloe's angry voice came from behind me. Ethan, what are you doing? The moment Mark saw her, he started wailing. Chloe, he tried to kill me. Ethan tried to kill me. I turned to face Chloe and clapped my hands together lightly. Can't you tell? I'm taking out the trash. Chloe had no time for my games and immediately had someone take Mark to the hospital. Go to the hospital and apologize to him, Chloe commanded. The Sterling and Anderson families were close, with several business partnerships. Mark was their spoiled only son. Hurting him meant the Sterlings would not let this go. I stared at Chloe like she was an idiot. He deserves an apology? With that, I turned to leave. Stop, she yelled, grabbing my arm. A dangerous light flashed in my eyes as I shook her hand off. Don't touch me. Do you think I'm still that pathetic, spineless pushover you married? Beside them, Sarah gasped. An arctic chill radiated from Chloe. Ethan, do you have a death wish? Because I can certainly grant it. I let out a disdainful laugh. You're welcome to try. Her face was a mask of unspoken danger. Don't think I won't touch you just because you have Ellie Vance in your corner. I raised an eyebrow. What's the matter? Jealous that someone has my back? Chloe was at a loss for words. She didn't even like me. Why would she be jealous? She was just annoyed. Ethan, if you think playing hard to get is going to work on me, you can forget it. I shot her a look. Playing hard to get? Please. Woman, you really think you're God's gift to men, don't you? And with that, I turned and walked away. Chloe watched my retreating figure, her face an icy mask. Only after I was gone did Sarah dare to approach her. Is that really the same Ethan who was dying of love for you? It's like he's been possessed. Chloe couldn't figure it out either. How could a man change so completely in just a few days? I left Anderson Corporation and went back to my hotel. A short while later, I got a call from Lily Anderson. Lily was Chloe's younger sister, a bubbly, sweet, and generous girl with an infectious smile. She'd just heard about the divorce and was worried I was taking it hard, so she asked me to hang out. In the entire Anderson family, Lily was the only one who had ever been kind to me, my only real friend during my amnesia. I would be leaving New York soon, and I wanted to thank her properly before I left, so I agreed to meet. The first thing I did was take her straight to her favorite Hermes boutique in the mall. Half an hour later, Lily walked out of the store in a daze, carrying the diamond-encrusted crocodile Birkin she'd been on the waiting list for forever. Even for someone like her who was used to luxury, spending $400,000 on a single bag was an insane level of extravagance. Ethan, are you serious? This bag is really for me. Lily stared at the handbag, which cost more than a small apartment, in disbelief. I smiled and nodded. Your birthday's next month. Think of it as an early present. Lily was so touched she was almost speechless. Oh my God, Ethan, you're the best. But where did you get this kind of money? She was confused. He'd left the divorce with nothing, right? And he hadn't worked in 2 years, so he had no income. Old savings, I said simply. Lily's eyes widened as the implication hit her. Ethan, you got your memory back? I nodded. Lily stared, stunned. No wonder he'd been acting so strangely, like a completely different person. It was because his memory was back. Her eyes sparkled. Ethan, you're so rich. Don't tell me you're the son of some billionaire? I smiled and waved a hand dismissively. Not the son, no. Lily's face lit up with understanding. Oh my God, I want you to be my sugar daddy. We spent the rest of the afternoon tearing through every luxury store in the mall. After dinner, Lily went home with her mountain of shopping bags, and I returned to my hotel. I had just walked in when my phone rang. It was Lily's number, but when I answered, a man's voice spoke. You're Lily Anderson's brother-in-law, right? You have 30 minutes to get to the Old Thorn estate on the outskirts of town. If you're late, you can come collect her body. At the Old Thorn estate, Lily sat on a sofa, her hands bound and her mouth covered with duct tape. 2 large bodyguards stood on either side of her, their eyes fixed on her every move. The man hung up the phone and turned to the bodyguards. Untie her. The moment her hands were free, Lily ripped the tape from her mouth and jumped to her feet. Wesley Thorn, are you out of your goddamn mind? You dare to kidnap me? In New York, the 3 great families were the Andersons, the Thorns, and the Collinses. While the Thorns and Andersons weren't close, they moved in the same circles. Calm down, Lily. I'm not going to hurt you, Wesley said. I just needed a way to get Ethan to come to me. Lily's heart sank. She'd just heard that I'd injured Mark Sterling, breaking his arm. Wesley and Mark were best friends. He'd kidnapped her to lure me into a trap for revenge. No, she thought frantically, I can't let Ethan walk into this. Lily lunged for the phone, but the bodyguards blocked her path. Wesley, I'm warning you, Ethan and my sister aren't divorced yet. If you touch him, Chloe will destroy you. Wesley sneered. Who are you trying to fool, Lily? Everyone knows Chloe has no feelings for him. In 2 years of marriage, she's barely even looked at him. I'm going to teach that arrogant bastard a lesson he'll never forget. Lily gritted her teeth, grabbed a glass from the coffee table, and hurled it at him. That's bullshit. My sister and brother-in-law are fine. If you so much as touch him, Chloe will skin you alive. Wesley dodged the glass and settled into an armchair. I don't scare easily, Lily. The whole city knows Chloe threw Ethan away like trash. Why would she get angry with me over him? A vicious glint appeared in Wesley's eyes. He broke one of Mark's arms. I'll break both of his. He pointed to his other men. You lot go wait by the door. When he gets here, make him crawl. Lily, absolutely furious, rolled up her sleeves and charged at Wesley. You son of a bitch, I'll kill you. Before she could reach him, the bodyguards grabbed her again. Lily, I don't want to hurt you, but if you keep this up, don't blame me for what happens next, Wesley warned. Just as he finished speaking, the sound of screeching tires cut through the night. Well, that was fast. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She prayed it was Chloe, not Ethan. When they'd forced her into the car, she'd managed to send a quick SOS text to her sister, hoping she'd seen it. Wesley crossed his legs, smugly watching the entrance. A moment later, his smirk vanished, replaced by shock as he heard his men screaming outside. Was it not Ethan who had come? Just as he had the thought, the screaming stopped. The next second, I appeared in the doorway, casually twirling a baton I'd taken from one of his guards. Wesley stared, his eyes wide. The man at the door radiated an aura that was utterly suffocating. It was Ethan. The moment Lily saw me, she screamed, Ethan, go! Get out of here. They won't hurt me. Just go. Wesley snapped out of his stupor and barked at his men. Gag her! Before they could move, a blur of motion shot past Wesley. He heard two dull thuds. One moment, Lily was worried for my safety. The next, she watched as I effortlessly dispatched the two men holding her. I struck one guard in the head with the baton and sent the other flying with a single kick. Both hit the ground hard, unconscious before they could even scream. Realizing things were going south, Wesley yelled toward the door, Guards, get in here. I smiled. If you're talking about the dozen men you had outside, I'd save your breath. Wesley gasped, staring at me in utter disbelief. He'd brought 20 professional bodyguards tonight, all of them highly skilled, and I'd taken them all out this quickly? They hadn't even lasted 10 minutes. How was this man so powerful? My face was a cold, emotionless mask, but my eyes burned with a murderous rage. You dare touch someone of mine? You have a death wish. My gaze seemed to paralyze Wesley. The sheer force of my presence was suffocating him. But if he couldn't get revenge for Mark, how could he ever face his friend again? Mustering his courage, Wesley declared, Ethan, you hurt Mark. Disfigure your own face and break both your arms, and I'll let you both walk out of here. A smirk touched my lips. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Lily grabbed my arm. Ethan, let's just go. Ignore him. I nodded, then looked at her gently. Lily, go wait for me outside. She looked at me, her eyes filled with worry. Ethan, my voice was uncharacteristically soft. It's okay. Go on. Lily hesitated, then nodded. Okay. As soon as Lily stepped out of the living room, she heard a blood-curdling scream from inside. Terrified, she was about to rush back in when I emerged from the house. Ethan, she cried, running to me and grabbing my hands. Are you okay? I looked down at her. I'm fine. She scanned me from head to toe, and seeing that I was completely unharmed, she finally let out a breath of relief. As Lily followed me out of the mansion, she saw the courtyard littered with the unconscious bodies of more than a dozen bodyguards. She covered her mouth, afraid to even breathe. Ethan did all this? Lily looked at me with pure adoration and gave me a thumbs up. Ethan, you are literally the coolest person alive. I will sing your praises to the heavens. I laughed, but before I could reply, a black sedan and a silver Bentley came speeding toward the estate. It's my sister. Lily recognized one of the cars and started jumping and waving. Chloe, I'm over here. Both cars screeched to a halt in front of us. The door of the Bentley opened, and a tall, elegant woman stepped out. Chloe glanced at her sister, who was bouncing around like a happy kangaroo, looking anything but victimized. Her gaze then shifted to me. What are you doing here? Her eyes flickered past me to the brightly lit mansion, where she saw the two unconscious guards at the door. I gave her a roguish grin. My handiwork. Someone called and told me to come or prepare to collect Lily's body. Lily tugged on Chloe's arm. Chloe, you have to thank Ethan. If he hadn't come when he did, I would have been in real trouble. I waved it off. No thanks needed. They were after me, not her. Just as I spoke, the passenger from the other car emerged. She was a beautiful woman, about Chloe's age. My apologies for the fright, Miss Anderson, Mr. Hawthorne, Victoria Thorne said, giving Lily and me a slight nod. Lily just snorted. For siblings, Victoria was certainly much easier on the eyes than her brother Wesley. Victoria glanced at the unconscious guards by the door, her face cold. That arrogant fool. Kidnapping Chloe Anderson's sister. He's practically suicidal. Her assistant nodded and hurried inside the house. A moment later, the assistant ran back out, stammering. Ms. Thorne, your brother, he's… What about him? Victoria's expression tightened. His left pinky finger has been severed. He's passed out. Victoria's face went pale. Chloe froze, her eyes instinctively flying to me. Victoria's gaze followed. You did this? She asked. I met her stare, my voice dripping with arrogance. I did, and he's lucky it was only a finger. Lily stared at me in shock. I cut off Wesley's finger. That must have been why he'd sent her outside, so she wouldn't be scared. Oh my God, she thought, how can Ethan be so thoughtful? Victoria clenched her fists, her eyes fixed on me. She'd never met me, but she'd heard the rumors. Everyone said Chloe Anderson's husband was a weak-willed pushover anyone could bully. But this weak man had just severed her brother's finger. Chloe, your husband, Victoria began. I cut her off, glancing at Chloe. I have no relationship with her. Ethan, Chloe hissed through gritted teeth. Was he that desperate to cut ties with her? Lily glanced at her sister. Wasn't Chloe the one who initiated the divorce? So why was she acting like she was the one who'd been dumped? It was so weird. I rolled my eyes at Chloe, having no interest in continuing this drama. I turned to Victoria. Miss Thorne, if you want revenge for your brother, you know where to find me. But a word of advice, bring more men. With that, I got into my sports car, revved the engine, and shot off down the road like a bullet. By the time Lily snapped out of her daze, all she could see were my fading taillights. Lily was practically bouncing with excitement. Chloe, you should have seen him. Ethan was incredible tonight. He took out all of Wesley's bodyguards by himself. Chloe just stared in the direction I disappeared, lost in thought. Victoria recalled my commanding presence, a spark of interest igniting within her. He'd not only maimed her brother, but had also taken down a score of trained men without a scratch. This man was anything but simple. Chloe, your ex-husband is certainly full of surprises, Victoria mused. Before Chloe could respond, Lily shot back, don't even think about it, Victoria. He's still married to my sister. A sly smile played on Victoria's lips. Then I'll just wait until the divorce is final. A dangerous chill instantly filled Chloe's eyes. You dare. Victoria had only been teasing, but seeing Chloe's reaction, her interest was genuinely piqued. Don't be like that, Chloe. You're divorcing him anyway. It has nothing to do with you if I pursue him. Then try it, Chloe said, her eyes filled with a clear warning. She paused, then added, and control your brother. If there's a next time, it won't be just a finger he loses. Victoria nodded. The Thornes were in the wrong tonight. Even if I hadn't acted, Chloe wouldn't have let Wesley off easy. Losing a finger was a cheap price for the lesson he'd learned. Maybe now he'd think twice before acting so recklessly. After delivering her icy warning, Chloe got in the car with Lily and left. When I got back to my hotel room, Ellie was waiting, laptop in hand, her eyes bright with excitement. Ethan, I found it. She'd pulled Black Shark's transaction records from 2 years ago and found a file with my name on it. Inside was a single account number. From that, she'd traced the person who put the hit on me. Without a word, she handed me the tablet. I took it, and as I read, my expression hardened. The Hawthorne family of Chicago, the people who hired Black Shark to kill me 2 years ago, were my own family? Couldn't believe it. I was about to call my grandfather when a news alert popped up on the screen. Caleb Hawthorne of Chicago to wed Jessica Langford. Heiress T.O. Langford fortune. Date is set. Below the headline was a photo of them, my cousin and my fiancé, in wedding attire. I stared at the picture in shock. My cousin, Caleb, and Jessica Langford, the woman I'd been engaged to for 5 years. They were getting married? They'd already taken wedding photos? The bastards. Did Caleb and Jessica really think I was dead? I immediately went online and started digging into the Hawthorne family's affairs for the past 2 years. 2 major things stood out. First, the family had officially announced my death 2 years ago, complete with a formal, well-attended funeral. Second, my grandfather, Arthur Hawthorne, had suffered a debilitating stroke, supposedly from the grief of my death, and was now paralyzed. My grandfather was the only one in the family who knew what I was truly capable of. He would never have believed I was dead unless he saw my body himself. And the family shouldn't have known about the ambush and the fall from the cliff 2 years ago. Unless… My eyes went back to the account number on the screen. My parents died when I was young, and my grandfather had raised me to be his sole heir. If I were dead, the inheritance would pass to the second branch of the family, to my Uncle Richard and his son. Suddenly, it all made perfect sense. Ellie went to the minibar and poured me a drink, a wry smile on her face. Ethan, I brought plenty of backup this time. Enough to burn the whole Hawthorne dynasty to the ground. I gave her a cold look. Stay out of it. She sat on the sofa. What? You're not going to get revenge. I took a sip of my drink. A kind-hearted man like myself. Ellie snapped her fingers, a relieved smile spreading across her face. 2 years, and you haven't changed one bit. Pack your things. We're going to Chicago tomorrow. I didn't sleep well that night, so I spent the entire flight catching up on sleep. After we landed, I checked into a hotel and slept some more. I woke up around 9, had dinner, and then slipped into the Hawthorne estate under the cover of darkness. In America, there are 6 great families that have held power for over a century. In the north, in New York, the Collins, Thorne, and Anderson families form a powerful triumvirate, with the Andersons being the strongest. In the south, in Chicago, the rivalry was between the Montgomerys, the Hawthornes, and the Langfords. But 20 years ago, the Montgomerys moved their entire family overseas for reasons unknown, and the Langfords have been in decline for years due to internal strife. That leaves the Hawthornes as the undisputed powerhouse of Chicago. The Langford matriarch and my grandmother were the closest of friends. She'd even saved my grandmother's life in their youth. Out of gratitude, my grandmother supported the Langford family for years, eventually arranging a marriage to unite our houses. The moment I came of age, I was called home to be engaged to Jessica Langford. The engagement party 5 years ago was an extravagant, high-profile affair. The very next day, Langford stock jumped 5 points. From then on, the Langford family's fortunes soared. I soon reached the old Hawthorne estate. I parked across the street from the back gate and scaled the wall. To my surprise, the security team was entirely new, and the protocols were far stricter than I remembered. I made my way to my grandfather's private villa on the grounds, but after a thorough search, I found no sign of him. He wasn't recuperating at home. Had my Uncle Richard sent him to a care facility? With no sign of my grandfather, I decided to leave. But as I headed downstairs, I accidentally tripped an alarm. Sirens blared, and I could hear the sound of guards running from all directions. In the ensuing chaos, I ran up to the 3rd floor, where I ran into a man in the hallway. I knocked him out without a second thought and ducked into the nearest guest room, planning to escape from the balcony. The moment I entered, however, I was attacked. Someone was in the room. I slammed the door shut and turned to see Chloe Anderson standing before me. What was she doing here? She looked just as shocked to see me. Ethan, here? And he'd set off all the alarms? The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. I didn't have time to explain. I just ducked into the bathroom. The moment the bathroom door clicked shut, there was a knock on the main door. I gripped the handle, listening intently. A guard came in and asked Chloe if she'd seen anyone suspicious. She said no. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. At least she had the decency not to turn me in. You can come out now, Chloe's cold voice called after the guard left. I stepped out of the bathroom. Why are you here? She asked immediately. I raised an eyebrow, a wry smile on my face. I should be asking you the same thing. Chloe, what are you doing in my house? Your house. Chloe looked stunned. You're a Hawthorne? It's certainly not your house, I retorted, spotting a glass of juice on the table and taking a long drink. Chloe's expression was unreadable. There was no Ethan in the Hawthorne family that she knew of. If he were truly a Hawthorne, the guards would have recognized him. I set the empty glass down. You'll find out soon enough. There was no point in saying more. I wasn't ready for the family to know I was alive. I started toward the window to check the situation outside, but after 2 steps, my knees buckled. Thinking I was injured, Chloe rushed forward to catch me. I looked up at her, my face flushed an unnatural shade of red. Chloe's eyes darted to the empty juice glass. Caleb's cousin, Leo King, had brought it up just moments before. Damn it, that bastard had drugged the drink. I clawed at my collar, the last vestiges of my self-control burning away in a wave of heat. I couldn't stop myself from leaning into her. Chloe's jaw was tight as she grabbed my flailing hands. Ethan, fight it! But in the next instant, my lips were on hers. A suffocating heat surged through Chloe's veins, her heart pounding in her chest. The feeling was so familiar, just like that night 5 years ago. Her gaze burned into me. Could it be him? I fell into a fever dream, and in it, I was back on that rainy night 5 years ago. I was overseas on a humanitarian mission when our clinic was attacked. I was captured, blindfolded, and no matter how much I begged her, the woman wouldn't let me go. Later that night, I woke with a start to find Chloe lying beside me. I froze. In 2 years of marriage, she had never so much as touched my hand. How did this happen? My mind cleared, and the events of the night came rushing back. I'd been drugged, and I'd used Chloe as the antidote. Just then, her eyelids fluttered. She was waking up. Without thinking, I brought the side of my hand down on her neck in a swift, precise chop. Her eyes had barely opened before she was unconscious again. I let out a sigh of relief, slipped out of bed, and left the Hawthorne estate before dawn. Not long after I was gone, Chloe woke up. She sat up. The room was empty. If it weren't for the disheveled sheets, the telltale crimson stain, and the angry red scratches on her own shoulder, she might have thought the whole night was a dream. Chloe rubbed her aching neck, a vicious glint in her eye. The bastard. He'd slept with her and then knocked her unconscious. Her phone pinged twice. She picked it up and saw it was an iMessage from me. She opened it, and her expression turned murderous. It was a Venmo transfer for $9.99, with a one-word message attached, unimpressed. Chloe stared at the $9.99 transfer, a glacial fury radiating from her. What the hell did he think she was? And that review, it was the ultimate insult. Chloe suppressed her rage and called Tina to come pick her up. She had come to the estate last night to discuss business with Richard Hawthorne. A maid had accidentally spilled tea on her, forcing her to use a guest room to change. She thought of the drug juice, and a murderous light filled her eyes. They had dared to target her. Very well. Soon her car arrived. The moment she got in, Tina, in the passenger seat, handed her a file. "Ma'am, I ran the check on Ellie Vance like you asked, but it's strange. I couldn't find any connection between her and Ethan." Chloe took the file, her face like ice as she scanned it. Their relationship had to be significant. A woman of Ellie's stature wouldn't be so deferential to just anyone. The thought of me and Ellie being a couple filled her with an unfamiliar, irritating agitation. Just how many secrets was Ethan hiding? What was his real connection to the Hawthorne family? And last night, Chloe pinched the bridge of her nose, then picked up her phone and dialed my number. It rang for a long time before I finally picked up. "Hello?" My voice was weak and groggy, as if I'd just woken up. Before Chloe could say a word, she heard another voice from my end of the line, bright and clear. It was Ellie. "Ethan, who is it?" Chloe gripped her phone, a fire of rage igniting in her chest. It was early in the morning. Why was Ellie with Ethan? Had they spent the night together? On my end, the moment I realized it was Chloe, I hung up. Chloe tried calling back, but the call wouldn't go through. I had blocked her number. "So, Ethan Hawthorne," she murmured to herself, a cold, dangerous smile playing on her lips. "You really think you can get away from me that easily? We'll see about that." Back in the hotel room, Ellie stood by the bed, watching me with an amused smirk as I ended the call. I shot her an annoyed look. "What did you find out?" "I found him," she said. "Your grandfather is in a private care facility in the suburbs." I nodded, changed my clothes, and headed out. When I got to the facility, I saw that my grandfather's room was guarded. Waiting for a moment when no one was looking, I slipped into an empty doctor's office. A few minutes later, I emerged wearing a white lab coat and a surgical mask. "The young master is in there." "You'll have to wait," a bodyguard said, blocking my way. I nodded, a cold light flashing in my eyes. The young master he was referring to could only be my cousin, Caleb. Inside the room, Caleb Hawthorne was holding our grandfather's hand, pressing the old man's thumb onto a document. With this paper, once he married Jessica, he would officially become the heir to the Hawthorne fortune. Caleb stood over the bed, looking down at the comatose old man with a cold sneer. "Grandfather, after my uncle died, you should have named my father as the heir, not Ethan. You were always biased, always favoring his side of the family. You spent all those years grooming Ethan to be the perfect heir, and for what? He still ended up dead at our hands." He leaned closer. "Don't blame us for being ruthless. Blame yourself. It wasn't enough that you chose him as heir. You had to try and marry him to my Jessica. I would never allow that. Now my father runs this family, and one day I will take his place. And Jessica will always be mine, and only mine." Caleb laughed coldly. "So rest easy, grandfather. We'll make the Hawthorne family stronger than ever. It's just a shame you won't be around to see it. If it weren't for keeping up appearances, my father would have gotten rid of this old man long ago. After the wedding, he'll have no more use to us." I stood outside the door, my head bowed, a storm of rage gathering in my eyes. So my grandfather's stroke was their doing as well. A moment later, Caleb emerged from the room, talking on his phone. "The suits have arrived? Good. I'm on my way." I watched his retreating back, my eyes like chips of ice. The wedding was in 3 days. I needed to prepare a gift for them, something they would remember for the rest of their lives. After Caleb left, I slipped into the room. There, lying on the bed with an oxygen mask over his face, was my grandfather, whom I hadn't seen in over 2 years. My grandfather had been a martial artist in his youth and had always kept himself in peak physical condition. Even in his old age, he was stronger than men half his age. But the man on the bed now was frail and emaciated, his skin a waxy yellow, looking like a candle about to burn out. Seeing him like this, a wave of panic washed over me. I immediately took his wrist to check his pulse. After a careful examination, my worst fears were confirmed. It wasn't a stroke. He'd been poisoned. Richard, that animal, to poison his own father. He deserved to be struck by lightning. I forced down my rage. This wasn't the time for anger. I had to get my grandfather out of here. I took a small vial from my pocket, shook out 2 pills, and carefully placed them in my grandfather's mouth. Not wanting to be discovered, I left the hospital and found a nearby coffee shop, where I called Ellie to plan the rescue. Once everything was in place, I returned to the facility. But when I reached my grandfather's room, I found the guards unconscious on the floor, and inside, the bed was empty. My grandfather was gone. Grandfather! Panic seized me. I'd only been gone for an hour. How could he be gone? Just then, my phone buzzed. I opened it and my blood ran cold. It was a picture of my grandfather, sent from an unknown number. My eyes blazed with fury as I immediately dialed the number. The moment it connected, I demanded, "Where is my grandfather?" A familiar voice answered. It was Tina, Chloe's assistant. "Mr. Hawthorne, Ms. Anderson asked me to tell you that if you want to see your grandfather again, you'll come to her at the Serenity Estates." I went rigid, my vision turning red with rage. Chloe, that bitch. She'd kidnapped my grandfather to threaten me. Also, Tina added, "Ms. Anderson said to remind you to unblock her number." Then she hung up. The Serenity Estates. Hawthorne Development had built these exclusive private residences in every major city in the country. Chloe was sitting on a sofa in the living room, a laptop on her knees, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She'd pulled the security footage from the Hawthorne estate, but large chunks of it had been deliberately erased. She was trying to recover the deleted files. Tina approached her. "Ma'am, I've spoken to Mr. Hawthorne. He should be on his way." Hearing this, Chloe let out a cold, humorless laugh. I arrived in under 30 minutes. The moment I burst through the door, I stormed up to Chloe. "Chloe, what have you done with my grandfather?" She slowly closed her laptop, a mocking smile on her face. "And who might your grandfather be?" I laughed, a harsh, angry sound. "Stop playing dumb." If she'd kidnapped my grandfather to threaten me, she obviously knew who I was. She narrowed her eyes, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across her lips. "So, should I call you Ethan? Or should I call you by your real name, Ethan Hawthorne?" I clenched my fists, glaring at her. Ethan Hawthorne was my real name. I'd used a simplified version, Ethan, for years while working overseas to protect my identity, and the name had stuck. Chloe continued, almost as if talking to herself. "The timing of your death announcement and the night I found you were very close. That, combined with what you said last night at the estate, I made an educated guess. You're Ethan Hawthorne, the heir who supposedly died 2 years ago." I shrugged. Since she already knew, there was no point in hiding it. I met her gaze. "That's right, I'm Ethan Hawthorne." She studied my face. "When did you get your memory back?" My voice was cold. "The day you asked for a divorce." She frowned, clearly recalling that day. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. "In a way, I should thank you. If it wasn't for your cold-hearted dismissal, I might still be an amnesiac." Chloe's expression darkened. "Ethan, must you be so hostile with every word you say to me?" I shot back without missing a beat. "I don't see any reason to be nice to my ex-wife." Chloe was left speechless. She glared at me, and after a moment of silence, she suddenly asked, "Let me ask you something. What time did you leave last night?" I froze. Last night? The mere mention of it sent a fresh wave of anger through me. Just as I was about to let her have it, Chloe stepped closer, her eyes boring into me. "When I called you this morning, why was Ellie Vance with you? Don't you dare tell me you spent the night with her." I stared at her, stunned for a second before her meaning hit me. My face went pale. Did she really not know who I'd spent the night with? Was she pretending it never happened? I looked at her, a bitter, self-mocking smile touching my lips. "That's right, I spent the night with her." Chloe's entire body went rigid. Last night he'd been drugged, just like her. If he'd left, and gone to Ellie, then they must have. The thought sent a wave of furious jealousy through her. So intense she wanted to tear Ellie Vance limb from limb. I was her husband, and I'd spent the night with another woman. "Ethan Hawthorne, you are shameless." I looked at her coldly. "You're right, I am shameless. If I weren't, I wouldn't have spent the last 2 years orbiting you like some pathetic lapdog. The memory of the past 2 years filled me with a suffocating humiliation. I had never been so debased in my life. Chloe stared at me, her eyes narrowed dangerously. She grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the stairs. I tried to yank my arm away, but my foot slipped on the polished floor, and I went down hard. Chloe reached for me, but she was too late. She watched in horror as my head slammed into the sharp corner of a coffee table. The sight of blood made her gasp, and she rushed to my side. I glared up at her. "Get away from me! Don't touch me!" I pressed a hand to the gushing wound on my forehead, slumping weakly against her, too drained to push her away. Chloe panicked, yelling, "Tina, call a doctor, now!" Soon, the family doctor arrived. After a quick examination, he determined the cut was deep and would need stitches. Between the drug, the lack of rest, and the day's turmoil, the pain was overwhelming. I drifted into unconsciousness. Chloe stood by the bed, watching the doctor stitch up my wound, her turbulent emotions slowly beginning to settle. What was wrong with her? Why had she lost control like that? Was it really just because she thought Ethan had been with Ellie? After drinking that juice, they had both been drugged, and her memory of what followed was hazy. In that state, wouldn't staying with her have been the easiest option? But he had chosen to leave to go to Ellie instead of staying with her. Chloe hated to admit it, but she was jealous. Insanely jealous. Just then, Tina came in. "Ma'am, Richard Hawthorne sent over one of the maids. He claims she's the one who drugged your drink last night." Chloe let out a cold laugh. She didn't believe it was that simple for a second. Richard was just trying to placate her with a convenient scapegoat. "Keep her here," Chloe ordered, "and continue the investigation." "Yes, ma'am." When I woke again, it was dark outside. I instinctively raised a hand to my forehead, but it was caught by a cool, slender one. "The wound was just stitched," Chloe said. I looked at her infuriatingly beautiful face and wanted to scream. "Chloe, what the hell did I ever do to you to deserve this?" She sat on the edge of the bed, saying nothing. I glared at her. "Chloe, we're divorced. Do you understand that? An ex-wife should act like an ex-wife." There it was again, ex-wife. The word made Chloe's blood boil. Didn't he love her? Had recovering his old memories erased his feelings for her? Chloe tightened her grip on my hand. "Ethan, we're still in the cooling-off period. I can withdraw the application at any time." Panicked. "Chloe, are you serious? You're the one who wanted the divorce. I agreed to it and now you want to take it back? It's not that simple. What do you take me for?" She stared at me, her voice low and dangerous. "Push me, and you'll see what I'm capable of. And don't forget, I still have your grandfather." I'd almost forgotten. My grandfather was still her hostage. I grabbed her by the collar. "Chloe, if you so much as touch him, I swear I will end you." The sudden movement sent a fresh spike of pain through my head. "Easy," she said, steadying me by the shoulders. "I've already had your grandfather transferred back to New York. I've arranged for my personal medical team to look after him. He's getting the best possible care. You don't have to worry." Chloe had a feeling that if I left New York this time, I wouldn't be back. This was the simplest, most direct way to keep me here. As long as my grandfather was in New York, she knew I would always have a reason to return. I clenched my fists, glaring at her. "Chloe, what the hell do you want?" This sudden kindness was suspicious. A slow smile spread across her face. After a few seconds of silence, she said, "Ethan, I've decided I don't want a divorce." I stared at her, completely stunned. "No divorce?" I studied her for a long moment, then gave a humorless laugh. "No divorce? What about your precious first love? Or are you planning on having both of us?" "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped, her face darkening. The lead was a dead end. They didn't find him. My smile froze. So that was it. The only reason she'd changed her mind was because she hadn't found her lost love. I stared at her, my expression turning cold. "Chloe, I'm not some puppy you can call and dismiss at will. Don't use me as a stand-in for your first love." She frowned deeply. "I'm not using you as a substitute for anyone." I waved a dismissive hand. "It doesn't matter what you say. I'm not staying with you." I looked at her, my voice flat. "Chloe, you can't force this." She gave me a cool, appraising look. "You'll never know if it's sweet until you taste it." I was speechless, a profound sense of irritation welling up inside me. How had I never realized how utterly shameless this woman could be? Seeing I was about to argue, she cut me off. "Ethan, I don't mean anything by it. I just want to make sure your grandfather stays safe," threatening me with my grandfather again. "Fine. You win, Chloe. No divorce it is. We'll see who breaks first." In my mind, this was just a new game for her. The more I fought back, the more interested she'd become, the more she'd want to conquer me. If I went back to being the docile husband she knew, she'd probably get bored in a week. With that thought, I fell silent. Chloe glanced at the time. Are you hungry? Should I have them bring something up? I shook my head. Not hungry. I need to rest. I lay down and closed my eyes, feigning sleep. Chloe didn't press the issue and left the room. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, she heard my phone ringing on the coffee table. She picked it up. The caller ID read, Ellie the Annoyance. Chloe gripped the phone, an icy aura emanating from her. After a long moment, she answered. Ellie's voice came through, bright and cheerful. Ethan, I'm at the care facility. I don't see you. Where are you? Chloe's voice was like ice. Ethan is with me. There was a stunned silence on the other end. Then Ellie exploded. Chloe Anderson, you bitch. What have you done with him? Chloe's tone was perfectly flat. Ethan is my husband. Naturally, he's with me. Ellie shot back immediately. Have you no shame, Chloe? Need I remind you that you're divorced? A divorce that you initiated. Chloe paused. Then her voice dropped to a freezing temperature. So what? Until the papers are final, he is still my husband. Ellie, I'm warning you. Stay away from him. Before Ellie could respond, Chloe hung up. Just then, Tina approached. Ma'am, the security footage from the Hawthorne estate has been recovered. I've sent it to your phone. Chloe immediately pulled out her phone. She quickly found the footage of me leaving the estate. The timestamp was 5:36 a.m. Then she opened the recovered file from the second-floor hallway. It showed Leo King entering her room. The timestamp was 5:56 a.m. Chloe stared at the two clips, and a sudden realization dawned on her, a bright light flashing in her eyes. She had woken up shortly after 6 that morning, less than an hour after I had left. And Leo King hadn't entered her room until after I was already gone. That meant the person with her last night was me. She forced herself to remember, and hazy images began to surface. She remembered now. It was Ethan. The person with her last night was definitely Ethan. She had misunderstood him completely. She glanced toward the second floor, her heart filled with regret. Why hadn't he explained? Was she so unimportant to him that he couldn't even be bothered to say a single word? Seeing Chloe lost in thought, Tina spoke again. Ma'am, our team confirmed it. Richard Hawthorne gave the drug to Leo King, who put it in your drink. The maid Richard sent over was just a scapegoat. Chloe closed the video feed, her face a mask of terrifying cold. Put out the word, she said. All Anderson Corporation partnerships with the Hawthorne family are suspended, effective immediately. And any company that continues to do business with them is no longer a partner of ours. Yes, ma'am. Realizing I hadn't eaten, she turned to a housekeeper. Have the kitchen prepare some soup and a few light dishes and bring them up. Before she could finish, a panicked voice cried out from the top of the stairs. Ma'am, it's terrible. Mr. Hawthorne jumped out the window and ran away. What? Chloe raced back to my room, but it was empty. I had already left Chloe's villa and was on the road when I ran into Ellie, who had been on her way to rescue me. When Ellie heard that Chloe had taken my grandfather and was using him to threaten me, she was livid. Ethan, if it comes down to it, she said, making a throat-slitting gesture, just take her out. Being a widower is another way to be single. I rubbed my forehead. Chloe had saved my life after all. It wouldn't be right. Ellie gave me a sidelong glance. I'm kidding. But you, of all people, caring about what's right? Ethan, you've fallen for her. You can't bear to let her go. I clenched my jaw and said nothing. As much as I hated to admit it, I knew she was right. I had loved Chloe during my amnesia, and even with my memory back, those feelings hadn't simply disappeared. When I didn't respond, Ellie pressed on. Ethan, I have to remind you, she's not one of us. I cut her off. You don't have to. I know. That was precisely why I couldn't stay entangled with her. I had to go through with the divorce. Agitated and restless, I returned to my hotel, changed, and immediately went back out. I needed to blow off some steam. Chloe tracked down my hotel and went to find me. Just as she arrived, she saw me exiting the lobby and getting into a sports car. She immediately told her driver, follow that car. Half an hour later, I pulled up in front of a nondescript bar. Chloe noted the name on the sign, and after I went inside, she quickly followed. This part of Chicago was known for its bars, but hidden beneath the streets was an underground fighting ring, and this bar was the entrance. Chloe pushed open the door and was immediately hit by the overwhelming smell of stale beer and cheap liquor. It was 3 in the morning and the place was packed. The dance floor was a writhing mass of bodies under strobing, dreamlike lights, and the heavy metal music was deafening. Chloe scanned the room, but there was no sign of me. Can I get you something? a server asked, giving the elegantly dressed woman a once-over. Chloe said nothing, simply pulling a transparent, unmarked card from her purse and handing it to him. The server took the card to the bar, ran a scanner over it, and then handed it back, leading her toward an elevator. Level B3. Out of the elevator, turn left and go straight. Chloe nodded and stepped inside. The elevator descended to the third basement level. The moment the doors opened, she was hit by a wall of sound, roaring, shouting, and cheering. She stepped out and found herself looking at a massive boxing ring. The large screen above the ring displayed a photo of the reigning champion, the Mauler, along with his impressive fight record. The stands surrounding the ring were packed with the wealthy elite, including many international guests. Every face in the crowd was a mask of frenzied excitement. Chloe made her way toward the stands, heading for the VIP balcony at the top. She scanned the crowd again, but still saw no sign of me. Had she been wrong? Had he not come down here at all? Are you kidding me? The next fight is against a rookie? Someone grumbled. Some newbie has the balls to fight the Mauler? He's suicidal. He's going to be beaten to a pulp. I'll bet he doesn't last 10 minutes. 10 minutes is generous. I give him 3. Nah, 1 minute. The Mauler will take him out with a single punch. As Chloe listened to the crowd's chatter, she glanced up at the big screen just as the challenger's name appeared. A flicker of shock passed through her. The name was Spectre. Though she didn't frequent these places, even she had heard of the legend. In his 2 years in the international underground circuit, he had become a myth, a ghost who created a legacy that was still spoken of in hushed, reverent tones. Spectre? Am I seeing things? How could it be Spectre? He retired years ago. Why would he show up here? Anyone who followed the circuit knew the name. He was a living legend, the King of Kings. Spectre had just come of age when he'd made his name, his explosive power unmatched as he tore through every underground ring in Europe. From his debut to his sudden disappearance, he was undefeated. His record remained untouched, a monument no one had come close to surpassing. The entire arena was stunned into silence. Soon, the referee entered the ring, with the Mauler following close behind. The crowd held its breath, all eyes fixed on the challenger's tunnel, waiting. After a few tense seconds, a man in a simple golden mask emerged. He had a slender build, but his eyes were cold and sharp, betraying no emotion. The crowd went wild. The betting pool, displayed on the big screen, skyrocketed from a few million to several billion, and the numbers were still climbing. Chloe stood on the balcony, her heart pounding in her chest. It was Ethan. Even with the mask, she recognized his build instantly. "Ethan, get down from there," she screamed, shoving her way through the crowd, trying to get to the ring. Did he have any idea what he was doing? He'd been injured just hours ago, and now he was about to fight. "Ethan, get down here," she yelled again, desperately trying to push her way to the front, but the frenzied crowd was an impenetrable wall. The bell rang and the fight began. In a flash, I moved, a blur of motion closing the distance to the Mauler. Before he could even react, my fist connected with his jaw. But the Mauler wasn't a champion for nothing. He absorbed the blow and immediately launched a counterattack. As his fist swung toward my head, Chloe's heart leaped into her throat. But I was already moving, dodging the blow with fluid grace. In the next instant, I was airborne, twisting to land a vicious blow to his ribs. The Mauler grunted in pain, nearly buckling to his knees. The crowd roared, the energy in the arena reaching a fever pitch. The Mauler, his eyes now wild with fury, came at me with increasing ferocity, but I evaded each attack with practiced ease. The longer the fight went on, the more he found himself on the defensive. After a dozen exchanges, he was covered in bruises, his face swollen and bloody. I, on the other hand, was untouched, not a single hair out of place. This wasn't a fight, it was a systematic dismantling. The fight didn't last long. Less than 10 minutes in, a single spinning kick sent the Mauler flying out of the ring, where he landed in a heap, unconscious. The arena exploded, the crowd chanting my name in a deafening roar. "Spectre! Spectre!" I stood in the center of the ring, bathed in a single spotlight, my masked face projected onto the giant screen above. No one in that arena doubted who I was now. I can't believe I got to see Spectre fight with my own eyes. This is the luckiest day of my life. Is he making a comeback? I'm so hyped. The entire crowd was a sea of adoration, cheering and screaming my name, all except for Chloe. She stared at my image on the screen, and for some reason, a sharp pain lanced through her heart. Why did his eyes look so empty? It was as if he were completely detached from the world, devoid of all emotion. From the moment he entered the ring, his fists had been clenched, his lips pressed into a thin, hard line, as if he were holding something back, suppressing some great pain. Something was wrong. The roar of the crowd was starting to grate on me. I mechanically lifted my head and scanned the stands. For a second, I thought I saw a familiar face. I gave it a passing glance and turned to leave. The moment I stepped out of the bar, I saw Chloe waiting in front of my car. What was she doing here? Was that really her I saw in the crowd? Did she recognize me? She stood a few feet away and beckoned to me. I stared at her, my eyes cold. The agitation I'd worked out in the ring was already starting to creep back. When I didn't move, she strode toward me. "Chloe, what do you want?" I asked. "I should be asking you that," she shot back, grabbing my wrist, her voice tight with fury. "Ethan, do you have any idea what you just did? Have you forgotten you're injured?" She hadn't known I could fight like that. The moment she saw me step into the ring, all she could think was that I was still injured, that I could get seriously hurt. Her heart had hammered in her chest, and she'd wanted nothing more than to drag me out of there. I gave her a cool, detached look, a cold smirk playing on my lips. "If you hadn't mentioned it, I might have forgotten." "You!" she hissed, gritting her teeth, so frustrated she could barely breathe. "Ethan, don't forget, I still have your grandfather." A cold fire lit in my eyes. I spat the words through clenched teeth. "You bitch!" I wanted to smash her head in. "Get in," she said, holding the car door open. I shot her a glare before reluctantly getting in. As she drove, she kept stealing glances at me, my eyes closed as if I were asleep. Her gaze was filled with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Ethan, just how many identities do you have?" she asked suddenly. "Ethan Hawthorne, heir to the Hawthorne fortune. Spectre, the undefeated king of the fighting ring. How many other men was he?" I opened my eyes, my expression guarded and distant. I offered a faint smile. "Guess." She glanced at me. "Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen." By the time we got back to her villa, the sun was starting to rise. The cut on my forehead had reopened, so Chloe cleaned and redressed it, and I took a couple of painkillers. After breakfast, I was flipping through channels out of boredom when I landed on an interview with Caleb and Jessica. "Mr. Hawthorne," the reporter asked, "there are rumors that your marriage will lead to a closer partnership between your two family companies. Can you give us any details about this collaboration?" The Hawthorne and Langford families had been allies for generations, their business ties unbroken. Now, with this marriage, their partnership was expected to deepen, with some speculating about a full-blown merger. Caleb took Jessica's hand affectionately. "To be honest, I'm not entirely sure of the details. My father and Mr. Langford are handling the negotiations." Jessica chimed in. "You'll all find out on the wedding day." The reporter then turned to Jessica. "Ms. Langford, there's speculation online that you're only marrying Mr. Hawthorne to fulfill a family obligation, and that your heart still belongs to the late Ethan Hawthorne. Is there any truth to that?" At the mention of my name, Jessica frowned. "I always saw Ethan as a brother. Our engagement was purely due to pressure from our families. I had planned to break it off when we were older, but tragically, fate had other plans." Caleb lowered his head, feigning sorrow. "My cousin's fate was a tragedy." He then looked at Jessica, his eyes full of devotion. "My marriage to Jessica has nothing to do with business. She is the only one I have ever loved. We are getting married because we are in love." I stared at the sickeningly sweet couple on the screen, a cold, vicious smile spreading across my face. So in love. It seemed Jessica had conveniently forgotten how she used to chase after me. I'd never loved her, but we were still engaged. The way she framed it made it sound like I was the one who'd been desperately clinging to her. Couldn't let that stand, and I was suddenly very curious to see just how deep their love really was. Just then, I heard a voice from downstairs. "My name is Leo King. I'm a friend of Chloe's. Please let her know I'm here to see her." I raised an eyebrow. "Leo King?" I remembered that was the name of Caleb's cousin. I turned to see a housekeeper leading in a man dripping with designer labels. Leo didn't recognize me and was clearly shocked to find another man in Chloe's villa. When he noticed I was wearing pajamas, his face darkened. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded, pointing at me. The housekeeper who'd let him in quickly interjected. "Sir, this is Ms. Anderson's husband." Leo gasped. "What? This is Chloe's secret husband." The rumors all said her husband was hideously ugly. The man standing before him was anything but. "So, you're Chloe's husband," Leo said, quickly regaining his composure. An elegant, mocking smile spread across his face. "No, wait, her ex-husband, I should say." He'd heard from a friend that Chloe and her secret husband were already divorced. A man Chloe had thrown away was no threat to him. With that thought, his expression grew even more arrogant. "Chloe's already divorced you. Why are you still hanging around her, you shameless leech?" I let out a long, put-upon sigh. Who says I'm the one pestering her? It's the other way around. She's obsessed with me, clings to me like glue, won't let me leave. Leo pointed a trembling finger at me, his voice shrill. That's absurd. Look at yourself. You really think Chloe Anderson is obsessed with you? You're delusional. I yawned and waved a dismissive hand. You're too loud. Someone throw him out. I hadn't slept at all the night before and had used up a lot of energy. I was exhausted. I stood up, ready to go upstairs and get some sleep. Leo's face went from white to red with rage. He got in my face, pointing at my nose. You're just her cast-off trash, and you dare to act high and mighty with me? Let me tell you something. I'm going to be Chloe's next husband. I raised an eyebrow, looking down at him. Oh, you? You think you're going to be Chloe's husband? In your dreams. Leo smirked and pulled out his phone, pulling up a photo he'd taken the morning before, while Chloe was still asleep. You don't believe me? Look at this. If I hadn't burst in that night and interrupted him, he would have already had his way with her. But with these photos, he was sure she wouldn't be able to deny anything. I glanced at the photo on his phone, and my expression faltered. It showed Chloe, asleep in bed, with Leo holding her in his arms, a sickeningly sweet smile on his face. Chloe and him. When did this happen? Before I could process it, Leo was pointing at me again, his voice dripping with arrogance. Open your eyes and look closely. I'm about to become the son-in-law of the Anderson family. Soon, you won't even be worthy of shining my shoes. I hate being pointed at, especially by someone so arrogant. In a flash, I had his wrist in my grip and twisted, hard. Ack! My hand! With a sickening crack, Leo crumpled to the floor, clutching his now broken wrist. I laughed. You think climbing into her bed makes you the Anderson family's son-in-law? Let me tell you something. As long as I'm alive, that will never happen. Well said. A voice came from behind me, accompanied by the sound of slow, deliberate applause. I turned to see Chloe descending the stairs, a pleased smile on her face. My words had clearly amused her. I snorted and sat down on the sofa, crossing my arms. I was curious to see how she would handle her little problem in front of her husband. Leo looked up at her, his face hopeful. Chloe, Chloe. She narrowed her eyes. Leo King, I was planning to deal with you in a few days. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to my doorstep. She certainly hadn't expected him to have taken photos. The man deserved to die. Leo felt the icy chill coming from her and began to tremble. No, Chloe, please let me explain. I just missed you so much. I had to see you. Chloe sneered, unwilling to waste another second on this insect. Take him downstairs, she ordered her security. And take care of him until he's ready to tell the truth. Yes, ma'am, they responded in unison. Leo's face was a mask of terror. Chloe, no. Please. I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken the photos. Chloe, help me. He struggled, but the guard's grip was like iron. They dragged him away, his screams fading into the distance. I looked at Chloe and gave a sarcastic laugh. And after you two shared a bed. You're a ruthless one, aren't you? She shot me a look. You left before I woke up the other morning. He snuck in and took those photos then. He never touched me, and I have absolutely no connection to him. Hearing her explanation, I felt a small measure of relief, but I was too stubborn to show it. You don't have to explain. I don't care. With that, I got up and went upstairs. I lay in bed but couldn't sleep. I buried my head under the covers, holding my breath, trying to endure the stabbing pain that radiated from my chest with every beat of my heart. Damn it, the poison in my blood was acting up again. It hadn't flared up once in the 2 years I had amnesia. I didn't have the antidote with me now. I would just have to ride it out. Suddenly, I felt a soft body press against mine, and I flinched in surprise. A pair of slender, soft hands reached for me. Ethan, are you trying to suffocate yourself? Chloe said, pulling the covers off me. Seeing my face, red and strained from holding my breath, she looked both angry and pained. I looked at her, my gaze wavering. Whenever the poison flared, all I wanted was to be alone in the dark. When I didn't say anything, Chloe took off her blazer and tossed it aside. I stared at her, my mind hazy. Chloe, what are you doing? Was she planning on sleeping here? She raised an eyebrow, then wrapped her arms around me. Sleeping, she said simply. My whole body tensed. I sat up, glaring at her. She met my angry gaze with a look of playful suggestion, her fingers tracing a light pattern on my chest. If you don't want to sleep, she murmured, we could do something else. She paused, her hand moving to my cheek. Something like what happened the other night, for example. I went rigid. Are you insane? I spat. For 2 years, you wouldn't even let me hold your hand. And now, when we're getting divorced, you pull this. her eyes fixed on a mark on my neck. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "When I woke up at the Hawthorne estate, you were gone." My head was fuzzy. I couldn't remember what happened clearly. I thought you'd left me and gone to Ellie, but I checked the security footage. You didn't leave until morning." I cut her off. "We're two consenting adults. It was transactional." Chloe frowned. She was clearly the one who had been taken advantage of, so why did she suddenly feel like she was the one being used and discarded? She looked at me, her expression serious. "Shouldn't you take responsibility for me?" I let out a cold laugh. "I gave you plenty of chances over the years. You're the one who didn't want them. It's a little late for that now." Chloe stared at me, her eyes dark and searching. The way I'd made her feel last night was too familiar. She needed to be sure of something. I sighed and pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. "Fine, name your price." She frowned. Was he really trying to pay her off? 50,000? I asked. 100? 200? When she remained silent, her face a thundercloud, I feigned a look of disgust. "The most expensive models in New York only charge a few thousand for a night. You think you're worth more than that?" Chloe finally snapped. He was treating her like a common escort? This man, she thought, truly had a gift for enraging her. I glanced at her. "Take it or leave it. Either way, I'm not taking responsibility." The sight of her was just making me angrier. I rolled over, turning my back to her. Out of sight, out of mind. Chloe watched my back in silence, that familiar feeling growing stronger. After a while, my breathing became light and even, and she guessed I had fallen asleep. Chloe needed to be sure of one thing. Gently, she lifted the back of my shirt, exposing the skin of my back. She stared at it, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes as she sighed inwardly. The feeling I'd given her was so much like that night 5 years ago, but ultimately, I wasn't him. There was no tattoo on my back. Chloe gently lowered my shirt, her cool, beautiful eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions as she studied my profile. After a moment, she wrapped her arms around me, placing a soft, gentle kiss on my neck. "It's okay," she thought. "So he's not the one." Just then, I stirred in my sleep, turning over and nuzzling into her embrace. The sleeping me was a world away from the explosive power of Spectre. Staring at my sleeping face, Chloe's heart began to race, a hot flush creeping up her cheeks. She quickly got up and fled to the bathroom for a cold shower. After her shower, Chloe was about to lie back down with me when a loud, angry shout erupted from downstairs. She went out to the balcony and saw Ellie Vance, flanked by 2 squads of bodyguards, surrounding the villa's main gate. "Chloe Anderson, get your ass out here," Ellie screamed. Ellie had woken up that morning to find me gone from the hotel. She'd checked the security footage and discovered I'd driven to the underground fight club in the middle of the night. Having known me for years, Ellie knew exactly what that meant. My silent trip to the ring meant the poison was acting up. She tried calling me, but I didn't answer. She then checked the security cameras outside the bar and saw Chloe taking me away. So furious she'd skipped breakfast, Ellie had immediately gathered her men and come straight to Chloe's villa. "Chloe, stop hiding. I know you're in there. If you don't hand over Ethan right now, I'm breaking down the door. You're divorced. For God's sake. Have you no shame, clinging to him like this?" Ellie had nearly shouted herself hoarse when Chloe finally emerged from the house. Ellie immediately charged the gate. Chloe narrowed her eyes. "He's still sleeping. And since when do you call him by his full name?" Ellie glared back, her eyes suddenly catching on the silk pajamas Chloe was wearing. "He's still sleeping," she'd said. Did that mean they'd slept together? A wave of pure hatred washed over Ellie. If it weren't for the iron gate separating them, she would have lunged at Chloe and torn her to shreds. "Chloe, don't think you can hold Ethan hostage with his grandfather. He doesn't respond to threats," Ellie said, crossing her arms with an air of absolute certainty. "This divorce is happening sooner or later." Chloe's expression darkened, turning frighteningly cold. Seeing her reaction, Ellie pulled a pen and a checkbook from her purse. "Fine, name your price. How much will it take for you to divorce him?" Chloe sneered. Did she look like she needed money? Why did everyone keep trying to buy her off? When Chloe didn't answer, Ellie continued, "Oh, right, I forgot you're not exactly poor. How about this, then? I'll give you a diamond mine. That's something not even your money can buy." "Hey, Chloe, I'm not finished. Don't walk away." Chloe completely ignored her, went back inside, and immediately made a call to Victor Vance. A few moments later, Ellie's phone rang. It was her father. "What? I have to come back now? But, fine, I'm on my way." After hanging up, Ellie sent me a quick text saying something urgent had come up. Then she and her men headed for the airport. Chloe stood on her balcony, a wine glass in hand, a triumphant smile on her lips as she watched Ellie's hasty departure. I spent the next 2 days resting at Chloe's villa. 2 days later, the day of Caleb and Jessica's wedding finally arrived. The future heirs of their respective dynasties, they were a real-life prince and princess, a match seemingly made in heaven. The venue was the Azure Palace, Chicago's most opulent hotel. The guest list was a who's who of high society, business tycoons, and political figures. The wedding was a lavish, high-profile spectacle, complete with media coverage and a live stream for the public. OMG, the chapel looks like a fairy tale castle. It's so romantic, one comment read. I heard their rings are worth millions. I can't wait to see the bride. She's going to look amazing, said another. The online audience watched the live stream, their comments flying across the screen, seemingly more excited than the groom himself. As the morning wore on, the guests all took their seats. At 11 o'clock sharp, the ceremony began. A priest stood at the altar, delivering the opening words. He was followed by the groom, Caleb Hawthorne, looking sharp in his tailored suit. As a beautiful, romantic melody filled the air, the heavy chapel doors swung open. There stood Jessica Langford in a custom, diamond-encrusted gown, the picture of elegance and grace. Caleb smiled as he met Jessica's eyes, a profound sense of satisfaction washing over him. After all these years, he was finally marrying her. His father was right, you take what you want in this world. So what if she had been Ethan's fiancée? In the end, she was becoming his wife. At the thought, Caleb lifted his chin, a proud, triumphant smile touching his lips. He and Jessica walked toward each other, meeting in the middle of the aisle. They linked arms and proceeded to the altar. The priest began, Caleb Hawthorne, do you take Jessica Langford to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? Jessica squeezed Caleb's hand, gazing at him with deep affection. At that precise moment, the chapel doors were thrown open with a resounding crash. Every head in the room turned toward the entrance. There, silhouetted against the bright light, stood a handsome man, his presence sharp and commanding. His looks and his bearing were flawless, like a full moon suddenly appearing in a starless sky, so bright that all other lights dimmed in comparison. Who is that? Is he here to object? A comment flashed. That suit is way better than the groom's. He's totally stealing the show. Why does that guy look so familiar? I walked down the aisle, step by step, my presence and appearance leaving the entire room in stunned silence. Only when I drew closer did Caleb and Jessica finally get a clear look at my face. Caleb's eyes widened in utter disbelief as he stared at the approaching figure. How could it be him? He was supposed to be dead. He'd been dead for 2 years. How was he still alive? It was impossible. A confident smile spread across my face. It's been 2 years, cousin. Don't you recognize me? Caleb pointed a trembling finger at me, his face a mask of disbelief. Ethan? You're alive. Beside him, Jessica stared at me as if she'd been struck by lightning. She wasn't the only one. The entire Langford family looked as if they'd seen a ghost. I gave a mocking smile. My apologies. Am I disappointing you by being alive? I then turned to face the assembled guests. Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I am Ethan Hawthorne, eldest grandson of Arthur Hawthorne. 2 years ago, I was the victim of an attack that left me injured and presumed dead. I've returned today to let you all know that the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. The heir to the Hawthorne family is very much alive. My uncle, Richard Hawthorne, stared at me, his face ashen, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth would shatter. As long as I was alive, the inheritance would never be his. He took a deep breath, forcing down his shock and rage, and stood up, his face a mask of false concern. Ethan, my boy, you're alive. This is wonderful news. You have no idea how devastated I was when we heard you were gone. I gave him a cool, dismissive look. Is that so? I had no idea you cared so much, uncle. Richard laughed awkwardly, extending a hand. Of course I care, you're my nephew. But today is Caleb and Jessica's wedding. Let's save this discussion for when we get home. He couldn't let me ruin the wedding. I brushed his hand aside, my gaze sweeping slowly over Caleb and Jessica. Uncle, our family business can wait. But as for other matters, Caleb's heart lurched. Ethan was back to take Jessica from him. He would never let that happen. Ethan, I'm sorry, he blurted out. I know you and Jessica were engaged, but we all thought you were dead. She's fallen in love with me, and I love her more than anything. Please, just let us be happy. Richard chimed in. That's right, Ethan. They haven't wronged you. They only got together after you were gone. They're truly in love. Please, just give them your blessing. I smiled faintly at them. Don't misunderstand. I'm not here to break up the happy couple. Caleb's eyes lit up. Then I took a ring from my pocket and held it out to Jessica. This is the ring your family gave me at our engagement 5 years ago. Since you and Caleb are in love, I consider our engagement officially void. From now on, we go our separate ways. Jessica took the ring, her expression one of disbelief. She had expected me to fight for her, to at least ruin the wedding. Instead, I had graciously ended our engagement and returned her family's ring. Caleb looked at me, his face filled with gratitude. Ethan, thank you. Richard beamed, his smile dripping with false sincerity. I knew you'd do the right thing, my boy. Please, take a seat. Not just yet, I said, cutting him off. My gaze shifted to the Langford family. Mr. Langford, Mrs. Langford, since my engagement to your daughter is now void, all business agreements between our families are hereby terminated. As for the $100 million dowry paid to your family at the time of our engagement, I expect it to be returned within 1 week. Jessica's father, Mr. Langford, shot to his feet. The partnership between Hawthorne and Langford was established by Arthur Hawthorne himself. You have no right to cancel it. Mrs. Langford stood as well, her eyes like daggers. Exactly, and that money was a gift from Arthur. We have no obligation to return it. I looked at the couple with cold composure. Mr. Langford, you must be joking. As the heir to the Hawthorne family, I hold a 40% stake in the company. Are you suggesting I don't have the authority to terminate a partnership? As for the money, it was a dowry, and it was noted as such in the transfer. Now that the engagement is off, you are legally and ethically obligated to return it. If you have any doubts, Mrs. Langford, feel free to consult your lawyer. At this, Mrs. Langford's eyes darted around, and she suddenly grabbed my hand, her face a mask of warm affection. Ethan, dear, I know you're still upset with Jessica, but you know, she and Caleb haven't signed the marriage license yet. This wedding, Caleb paled. What are you saying, Mrs. Langford? Mrs. Langford gave Caleb a saccharine smile. Caleb, you and Jessica aren't married yet. Isn't it a bit premature to be calling me mother? Without Ethan, Caleb would have been the Hawthorne heir, and Jessica's marriage to him would have been a huge boon for the Langford family. But now that Ethan was alive, he was the true heir. Caleb was nothing in comparison. In that case, it was far more advantageous for Jessica to marry Ethan. Caleb's face went from white to green as he stared at her. Mrs. Langford pulled her daughter to her side. Jessica, darling, I've always thought you and Ethan were the perfect match. Apologize to him, and we can just call off this whole wedding. Richard looked like he was about to explode, but Mr. Langford whispered something in his ear. The two men exchanged a look of silent understanding and said no more. Mrs. Langford gave her daughter a little push. Jessica, what are you waiting for? Apologize to Ethan, and give him the ring. Jessica glanced at Caleb, her mind racing. She liked Caleb, but if he wasn't the Hawthorne heir, he lost a significant amount of his appeal. After a quick mental calculation, she walked over to me, her face a perfect picture of guilt and longing. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I thought you were gone, that's the only reason. The truth is, I've never stopped loving you. Can we still be engaged? At her words, the bouquet fell from Caleb's hand, his face draining of all color. We were about to be married, he whispered, and you're choosing him over me? His gaze snapped to me, his eyes filled with a venomous hatred. Ethan, why didn't you just stay dead? A faint smile played on my lips as I took the ring from Jessica's hand. Seeing this, Mrs. Langford's face lit up with triumph, already envisioning the glorious future that awaited the Langfords now that they were reallied with the Hawthorns. Richard, too, breathed a silent sigh of relief. As long as I was placated, the situation was still salvageable. But in the next second, a sharp, cracking sound echoed through the silent chapel. I hadn't put the ring on. Instead, under the astonished gazes of everyone present, I simply crushed it between my thumb and forefinger. The priceless diamond ring disintegrated into dust and fragments, sifting through my fingers to the floor. You! Jessica's smile froze on her face, her eyes wide with disbelief. I brushed the non-existent dust from my fingers, my smile turning cold and sharp. A fine performance, Ms. Langford. It's just a shame I have no interest in used goods. The words had barely left my mouth when I snapped my fingers. The massive projection screen at the back of the chapel, which had been displaying a romantic backdrop, flickered to life. A crystal-clear audio recording began to play. As long as Ethan is dead, Caleb is the only heir. Once our families are joined, the entire Hawthorne fortune will be ours. It was Richard's voice, cold and vicious. Dad, are you sure Black Shark is reliable? We can't have any loose ends. Caleb's voice followed. Don't worry, I paid them enough. They'll handle it cleanly. As for the old man, once the wedding is over, we'll send him on his way." The audio cut out, and the screen displayed the account information for Black Shark, along with the details of a massive wire transfer from an offshore shell company controlled by Richard Hawthorne. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. A DNA paternity test report filled the screen. It showed that Caleb Hawthorne and Richard Hawthorne were not father and son. A second report showed a 99.99% probability that Caleb's biological father was Mr. Langford. The entire chapel erupted in chaos. Caleb wasn't a Hawthorne at all. He was a pawn planted by the Langfords years ago. This wedding of the century was nothing but a long con, a conspiracy to steal a fortune. "No, it's not true. It's all fake," Richard screamed, his face a ghastly white, his eyes wild with madness. The Langfords had all gone pale, slumping in their seats in shock. I ignored their pathetic denials, my cold gaze sweeping across the room. 2 years ago, they hired the Black Shark mercenary group to hunt me down in the jungle. They are the reason I was seriously injured, the reason I lost my memory for 2 years. They are also the ones who poisoned my grandfather, all in a plot to steal the Hawthorne family's legacy. My voice was quiet, but every word landed with the force of a hammer blow. The chapel doors opened one last time. Ellie strode in, followed by a team of her elite security, and, behind them, a squad of Chicago police officers who had been waiting outside. "Richard Hawthorne, John Langford, you're under arrest." As the cold steel of handcuffs snapped shut, the meticulously planned wedding devolved into a farcical sideshow, a public trial for their crimes. I watched as the police led them and their families away, my expression unreadable. 2 years of humiliation and hatred had finally come to an end. 2 days later, I was back at the Hawthorne estate. After dealing with the most urgent company matters, I returned to my grandfather's study. Ellie handed me a file. "The traitors in the company have all been dealt with, and your grandfather has been moved to the best facility in New York. Chloe Anderson sent her personal medical team to oversee his care. He's safe." I nodded, rubbing the bridge of my nose. Ellie looked at my exhausted face and her expression grew serious. "Ethan, the poison. We need to synthesize the antidote as soon as possible. To activate the overseas lab, we need the cipher key from your jade pendant. Where is it?" I stiffened, Chloe's cool, beautiful face flashing in my mind. She said, "She threw it away." "Threw it away?" Ellie's voice shot up an octave. "Does she have any idea how important that is?" "That's it. I'm going to see her." "Don't," I said, my voice hoarse. "She saved my life. Let it go." Ellie looked at me with exasperation. "You're too soft. It was the same 5 years ago. You almost died saving some random woman you didn't even know." I clenched my fists. 2 years ago. No, it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was on a humanitarian mission overseas when our position was overrun by local insurgents. In the chaos, I saved an Asian woman who was being hunted. I created a diversion to cover her escape, taking a bullet in the back in the process. The wound was deep, down to the bone, and it left a gnarled, twisted scar that looked almost like a tattoo. Later, to better protect my identity, I had the scar removed with a skin graft. I never imagined that the woman I'd saved on that rainy night was Chloe Anderson. And I certainly never imagined she would spend 5 years searching for a man she only saw from behind. And all that time, I was right beside her, playing the part of her amnesiac husband, completely oblivious. Ellie watched my distant expression and sighed. "Fine, it's your life. But I have to remind you, Ethan, she's not one of us. Now that you're back, you have to take up your responsibilities, the ones that live in the shadows. She's just a normal CEO living in the light." I said nothing. She was right. We were from 2 different worlds. Meanwhile, in the top-floor office of Anderson Corp., Chloe stared at the news, at the endless reports on the upheaval in the Hawthorne family, unable to process what she was seeing. Ethan Hawthorne. He was the missing Hawthorne heir. She thought of how he'd changed after regaining his memory, of his terrifying presence in the fighting ring, of the ruthless finality with which he dispatched his enemies. All the fragmented pieces of the puzzle were flying together in her mind, forming a single, clear, and terrifying picture. Tina knocked and entered. "Ma'am, the file you requested." Chloe took it. It was a record of all of Ethan Hawthorne's public activities from 5 years ago. One entry stood out, a report of him going missing for several days after participating in a humanitarian aid mission in a war-torn country. The time, the place, it all perfectly matched the night she was rescued. Her heart seized. An impossible thought, a wild hope, surged through her. She rushed to the private safe in her office, her hands trembling as she entered the combination. The door swung open, revealing a small, velvet box. She opened it. Inside, on a silk cushion, lay the jade pendant she had claimed to have thrown away. She remembered it hanging around his neck when she pulled him from the water. It was engraved with a single word, Ethan. She had always assumed that was his full name. Chloe picked up the pendant, clutching it in her hand. The cool stone did nothing to quell the fire in her heart. It was him. It had to be him. The first love she had searched for 5 years, and the amnesiac husband she had married. They were the same person. An overwhelming wave of joy and sorrow washed over her. She dialed my number, only to be met with the cold, flat tone of a disconnected line. Was he leaving? After getting his revenge, was he just going to disappear from her life without a word? No, she wouldn't allow it. Dusk, the coast. I stood alone on a rocky outcrop, watching the setting sun paint the ocean gold. This was the same stretch of water she had pulled me from 2 years ago. Now that everything was settled, it was time for me to leave. I heard the soft crunch of footsteps on the sand behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Are you leaving? Chloe's voice held a faint, almost imperceptible tremor. Yes, I answered simply. Why didn't you say goodbye? We're divorced. We're still in the cooling off period, she insisted, coming to stand beside me. The sea breeze caught her long hair, whipping it across my face, carrying her familiar, intoxicating scent. I turned to face her, and the sight of her red-rimmed eyes sent a sharp pain through the softest part of my heart. Chloe, we're not right for each other. Why not? She demanded stubbornly. Is it because of my first love? But what if that man was you? I froze, my head snapping toward her. She opened her hand. There, in her palm, was the jade pendant I thought was lost forever. You've been searching for 5 years, she said, her voice soft and thick with unshed tears. I thought I'd never see you again. I looked at her, a storm of emotions swirling inside me. She hadn't thrown it away. She knew everything. I took the pendant from her hand and fastened it around her neck, the cool jade a stark contrast against her warm skin. I raised a hand, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her face, my fingertips grazing her cool cheek. 5 years ago, I explained softly, I was wounded. It left a scar on my back. I had it removed with a skin graft later, for a mission. I had just answered the last question in her mind. Chloe's tears finally fell. She threw herself into my arms, holding me so tightly it felt like she was trying to merge our bodies into one. You idiot, she sobbed into my chest. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I held her close, feeling the warmth of her body, the frantic beating of her heart against mine. All the pain, the humiliation, the suppression of the last 2 years melted away in that moment. I tilted her chin up and kissed the tears from her cheeks. I'm sorry. She looked up at me, her eyes wet with tears but shining with a light I'd never seen before. I was always by your side, I said, looking deep into her eyes, my voice low and serious. My dear CEO, without another moment's hesitation, I lowered my head and captured her lips in a kiss I had been longing to give. The wind howled around us, and the waves crashed against the shore, a symphony for a love that had spanned 5 years, through amnesia and reunion. This time, we would never be apart again.